On this episode of Built a Billion, we will discover how high we can build our skyscrapers of the future. Did you know that there are plans to build a structure that will be tall enough to exit Earth's atmosphere and reach heights in space? Before we dive in, please subscribe to the channel and like the video to hear about all the mega projects of the world, 1 billion at a time. Number 5. Burj Khalifa. We'll start with the tallest skyscraper in the world right now. Located in Dubai, the Burj Khalifa has a height of 828 meters, or 2,720 feet. Construction started in 2004 to attract tourists, and the $1.5 billion skyscraper is mainly used as a residential space that includes hotel rooms. It features one of the world's highest observation decks and has the second largest choreographed fountain outside of its entrance. The skyscraper was finished in 5 years and officially opened to the public in 2010. These days, most countries have height restrictions for their buildings. Plus, there has to be enough flat land available to go with sufficient financial backing in order to build a tower from scratch. But don't lose hope. The world may see a new skyscraper that's even taller than the Burj Khalifa, and its construction has already begun. The Jeddah Tower might become the first skyscraper that's 1 kilometer in height. That seems big now, but this building is a pipsqueak compared to some of the buildings you'll see later in the video. Unfortunately, there has been issues with the construction. In 2017, progress was halted after many investors were imprisoned by the Saudi Arabian government in a corruption scandal. But after these investors were released, the Jeddah Tower was still plagued with challenges. Vertical transportation to heights like this are extremely limited, and architects are still working on designs and materials that will keep the building from swaying in the wind. This building is the #1 contender for tallest in the world, but the future holds much taller endeavors. Number 4. Exceed 4000. The Exceed 4000 concept was created in 1995 by the Taisei Corporation as a creative way to add more housing in Japan. This structure would be taller than Mount Fuji at 4 kilometers or 2.5 miles. The vision was a city inside of a building with malls and grocery stores so that residents would never have to leave. The structure would even offer housing for up to 1 million people and serve as an example of skyscrapers that rely on clean energy. The skyscraper was planned to run entirely on solar power, but developers weren't quite sure on how to acquire so much energy. And to accommodate the huge, wide base of the structure, developers inferred that they would have to base it in the Pacific Ring of Fire. Is that literally the best place they can think of? If this thing ever gets built, it will be the tallest skyscraper in the world and the most expensive, no questions asked. Everything would cost $900 billion to $1 trillion. The building would be constructed of 3 million tons of steel, equating to 300 Eiffel Towers. The exact time it would take to complete is unknown, simply because architects don't know if creating a building this size is even possible. The company Taisei has claimed they are still working on the kinks that need to be ironed out before embarking on such a huge project. Number 3. Tokyo Tower of Babel. The concept of the Tokyo Tower of Babel was presented in 2002 at the Global Environment Summit in Brazil by the Toshio Ojima Laboratory. It would have a height of 10 kilometers or 33,000 feet, making it taller than Mount Everest and higher than what the average airplane flies. The base for this tower would need to be 4,100 square kilometers, over 2 times the size of Houston, Texas. Once finished, the building would be able to house 30 million people. At the time of construction, the Japanese economy crashed, so the building never got a chance to be built. Even if they wanted to continue today, who's paying the $306 trillion it would take to construct this thing? Especially since those who would be funding it would be dead before its completion. The tower would take 150 years to build. Number 2. The Launch Loop. The Launch Loop was first mentioned by Keith Lostrom back in 1981. It would be made with a series of cables connected to the Earth and propel objects into space through a magnetic levitation system. In order to reach the area above the atmosphere and come back down, the loop would have to be 2,000 kilometers or 1,240 meters in length with a maximum height of 80 kilometers. This is 8 times taller than where airplanes fly. This mechanism could launch vehicles into space without the need of a rocket, blazing trails for space tourism and exploration. If you were to be launched by the loop, you'd be traveling at 14 kilometers per second. Just 1 year of operation would cost $10 billion, and the tech to create the launch loop is still being developed. The magnetic levitation system would be very hard to create, plus construction would have to be started in an area that isn't heavily populated. Number 1. Space elevator. This last concept has been in development since 1895 when a Russian scientist came up with an idea for the space elevator. The tower would reach a height of 35,800 kilometers. At the time, there was no material available that had enough compressive energy to accomplish this. Since then, others have focused on a tensile structure, and many different companies have been competing to be the first to build the elevator, with all of their concepts being roughly the same. The elevator would involve a cable that would reach above the Earth's atmosphere, a counterweight, and a brave climber willing to take the journey up the cable. But developers are still torn on what material to use, with some considering diamond nanothread, and some looking at graphene, a carbon-based material that can withstand the tension on the cables. Completing the project won't be easy. Scientists have to think about space debris that could damage the elevator, and developers worry about having enough material to build the elevator in the first place. However, physicists in Japan are already trying to figure out how a tower like this could work on a smaller scale, and they think they could have the space elevator finished by 2050. China then entered the chat and quickly one-upped them, offering a completion date of 2045. What do you think about all these super tall structures? Would you take a ride on the launch loop or the space elevator? Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Click that video on the screen to watch something you haven't seen. And thanks for visiting Built a Billion.